Today, for our last session, we've got Mike from the Field Services Department at Jamf talking about managing Jamf Pro from an iPad.
All right. Cool. Thank you for joining us here today. Hope you had a good week. Made it to the end, so congratulations. That's me. I'm Mike Vandelender, Field Technician at Jamf. Today's session is going to be managing Jamf Pro via iPad, and I'm going to be walking through just a series of demos that range in difficulty from basic to fairly advanced. And my idea is mostly to display the possibilities of the broad range of capabilities for managing Jamf Pro with your iPad, and hopefully in the end inspire a few others to also come up with new possibilities on their own devices. So with that, I'm going to just break it down to a few parts. The premise will be an introduction. From there, I'll move into the browser. Then we'll talk about native applications on iOS. And then we're going to finish up with some conversations about the API and using that from the iPad. So just to get started, I joined Jamf in 2014 in the IT department. I was a desktop services specialist, and mostly that means I spent most of my time talking to fellow Jamfs. I had a lot of FaceTime with people, trying to support them in their use of macOS, iOS, and other platforms. But my goal at the time was really just to get as much FaceTime as possible. I didn't want to spend all my time behind the screen, and so I had an iPad mini at the time. I could walk around in the office, talk with anybody, look up research information, take notes, kind of do as much as possible from my iPad mini. But then in 2015, Apple came out with the iPad Pro, 12.9-inch, beautiful device, external keyboard, Apple Pencil, lots of nice accessories there. And I adopted it as my main device, kind of put the Mac to the side, tried to use the iPad as much as possible, and tried to find new ways I'd be able to use the iPad to accomplish my daily tasks. So that's the premise. Everything else that I kind of talk about today is tips and tricks about what I've learned in that process. And so we'll just start with the browser. The place where you're going to spend most of your time to manage your devices with Jamf is going to be in the browser using the Jamf Pro web app. And fortunately, the iPad has Safari, and we can use that browser to do many of the things. So like I said, we're going to start super basic, but then hopefully by the end, make things fairly advanced for you. All right, so at the beginning, we're just going to add Jamf Pro to the home screen of our iPad. And simply enough, start at the home screen of your iPad and launch into Safari. From Safari, you can go to the URL, the address for your Jamf Pro server, log into your Jamf Pro server. And I should say I'm doing this on an iPad Pro running iOS 11, and everything is going to be in Jamf Pro 10. So log into Jamf Pro, and you will see from your dashboard, you can go to the share button in the upper right-hand corner, tap on that, and you're going to have the ability to tap on Add to Home Screen. When you tap on Add to Home Screen, you've got an opportunity just to rename the web clip or the bookmark for your Jamf Pro web app. Hit Add, and now it's on the home screen. So this is like a bookmark, but it's better because I can tap and drag that down to the dock on my iPad. And now I have quick access to Jamf Pro whenever I need to. All right, so now that I've got access to Jamf Pro, let's take a look at the mobile interface and layout of Jamf Pro version 10 on the iPad Pro. So launch into Jamf Pro, and you're going to get a basic landscape view, the same as you'd see on any desktop web browser, which is very nice. But one thing you can't do with the desktop is turn it on its side. I can do that with my iPad, and Jamf Pro just resizes conveniently to fit Safari on the device. But for the purposes of today's demos, I'm just going to do everything in landscape because it displays much nicer on a big screen. So using the iPad in landscape, navigating through Jamf, I can do all the same thing as I can do on a desktop machine. Tap on drop-down menus. You can tap in search fields. I can even use some native iOS features like Siri voice dictation and just simply say the name of the device I'm trying to find, say the serial number of the device I'm trying to look for, and get those results right there. But one thing that's new with iPad Pro, iOS 11, is drag and drop. So one thing we can do when looking through a list of managed devices in Jamf is just tap and hold on the name of a device to actually get the URL for it. So if you press and hold on the name of the device, that's a link to that device's inventory record. You can see the link pop up on the screen. I can drag that over to the right-hand side of the screen. And Safari is actually going to shrink down, and it's going to give us a little bit of space to drop that link for this device. When I let go, Safari splits into two. I have a list of managed devices on the left. I have the inventory record of my managed device on the right. And you can just keep dragging and dropping things from the left to the right and kind of keep browsing through your devices. Another thing you can do is swipe up from the bottom of the screen on the iPad to bring up the system-wide dock. And with any application that supports split screen, you can just tap, press and hold, and drag that icon to the right-hand side of the screen again of the iPad. And we're going to see the same thing. Safari is going to shrink down to the left, drop the app on the right-hand side, and everything splits. You also have the little drag handle in the middle, so if you press and hold on that with your finger, you can resize as you want to. So now I have Jamf Pro on the left, any other application on the right, such as Notes. Gives me a great opportunity just to drag and drop links to support sites maybe that are helpful in a situation. I can take notes about the device maybe that I'm working on. Got a full workspace in front of me there. Now, I can keep resizing. This is new on iOS 11. Keep resizing to the left, shrink everything down, and Safari resizes. It's a much smaller application. And when you let go, Jamf Pro resizes to the size that Safari gives it. So it's kind of like an iPhone app at that point. I still have the same access to all the features, but in a resized mobile interface. Very nice. Upper left-hand corner, tap and drag on the drag handle, pull down, the Safari app pops out, and it gives you the ability to drag Safari left and right on your iPad. So if you need to be able to resize it, do chat in the background, look up other things, you just have a floating window that you can move to wherever you need it on the iPad. Makes it much more convenient and customizable. Okay, so something a little bit more difficult. Let's upload items to Jamf Pro from the iPad. Got a pretty simple operation here. What I want to do is upload a licensed software record from Jamf Nation to my Jamf Pro server. So start at Jamf Nation inside of Safari. I'm going to tap on More in the upper right, tap on Licensed Software Records or Templates on the left-hand side, and choose an app. We're going to choose BB Edit because it's a great Mac application. When you tap on that link for that template, Safari downloads it and then asks you, what do you want to do with this file? This is a relatively recent thing on iOS. I can just tap on More, and I get a little pop-up. And the pop-up asks me, where are you going to save this file? And I can just save to the native Files application on iOS. Tap on Files. The Files application actually opens up on top of Safari and gives me an option to choose where I'm going to save that file. So in this case, I could choose to save locally on the iPad. I could save to iCloud Drive. Any application that provides a storage container like Dropbox, Box, OneDrive would all be available there as well. In this case, I think I'm just going to use iCloud Drive. So file is saved to iCloud Drive on my iPad. Go back into Jamf Pro. I need to be able to upload this file now. So from the Jamf Pro interface, I can tap on licensed software over on the left-hand side. And there's a very convenient upload button in the upper right. So tap on Upload, and Jamf Pro asks me to choose a file to upload, same as you'd see on a Mac. Tap on Choose, and we have the option to now browse through iOS. Tap on Browse, and it's actually going to pop up the exact same Files application that we were looking at before. So we can see a list of different applications or different files I've downloaded. I'm going to choose the BB Edit file. Tap on that. Simple enough. Uploads to Jamf. Once it's uploaded, just verify the details, and if it's all good, tap on Save. Now we've got our record inside of Jamf. So let's do something just even a little bit more complicated. And this is going to be uploading or renewing a VPP token for your Jamf Pro server. Now, the reason that this is a little bit more difficult is because I have to cheat. I can't use Safari to accomplish this task. If I try to do this through Safari, the iPad's actually going to try to install the VPP token on the device, say as like a configuration profile would. I don't want that. I want to save it to the Files application, and I want to be able to upload it. So a third-party application that lets me do this is iCab Mobile. There may be others. This was free at the time. Works very well. So iCab, like any other browser, has an address bar at the top. Go ahead and tap on that. Put in the address for the VPP store, or the VPP portal. I'm going to just log into an account here and type in my credentials, log in. Same thing you do for renewing or uploading a VPP token on any other platform. Tap on your name, go to Account Summary, and you'll see a link on the right-hand side to download your token. Here's where things get different than Safari. If I tap on Download Token, I have a little popover, ask me what do I want to do with the file. If I tap on Download, it goes into a download manager inside of iCab. This is the critical component, because I get to choose now where this file is going to go. It's not going to try to just simply install. So, file's downloaded, tap on it. Same as what we saw with the software license record, we can just simply save to files. So I'm going to save that file to Files. Go back to Jamf Pro, go to my settings in the upper right, go to Global Management, and click on or tap on VPP accounts. Inside of VPP accounts, I already have an existing VPP account here. I'm just going to renew the existing token. So tap on the name of the account, tap on Renew Service Token, and we get the familiar Choose File dialog box. So choose File, brings up the Browse option, tap on Browse, go into the Files application, find your VPP token, select it, and does what you'd expect, uploads into Jamf. Once that's done, now that we've uploaded our VPP token, you can save, you can go through, browse, verify that the licenses for the applications you expect to be there actually exist. Everything looks great, so hit done. Okay, one last upload. We're going to try deploying a policy for a package, again using the iPad. Now, for this example, I'm using a Jamf Cloud server, so it's using a Jamf Cloud distribution point. But if you have a local file share distribution point, I do have something for that pretty soon here as well. Okay, so I want to be able to download a large file in this case. I'm going to get Microsoft OneNote. It's about a 500 megabyte installer package. It's available online to download as a standalone installer from macadmins.software. So I'm going to use iCab again to do this. From iCab, I can tap on the OneNote package. It gives me the opportunity again to download the file. And it goes into the download manager. The great thing about this with the download manager is I can keep doing things in the background. Safari, you'd have to kind of wait for the whole package to download before you can really do anything with it. This can just exist in this little popover. When I'm ready, I'll save it. So OneNote saved to the iPad, same as what I've done with everything else. Go into the Files application. I'm going to go back into Jamf Pro, and I need to upload this package. So I can go to Settings. I can go down to Computer Management, and then go to Packages. Inside of Packages, we have the option to create a new package. And again, choose File. Browse that location where you saved the OneNote package or really any installer package, upload it, and watch the progress bar go. Cool. So package is going to be uploaded to Jamf, and I need to just simply create a policy so that I can install this application on my Macs. So I'll go back to the Computers tab in the upper left-hand corner. We'll go down to Policies in that left-hand sidebar. One thing I will point out, you can also collapse the menu on the iPad. Works just the same as the desktop. Go down to Policies, and we're going to create a new policy. Do your typical things with the policy, give it a name, set your trigger, in which case none. I'm going to put this in self-service. My execution frequency will just be ongoing, so people can reinstall it as they need to. Configure packages, it's going to be familiar. Tap on Configure, and we've got a list of packages that we've uploaded previously. So tap on OneNote, add, done. Don't forget to make sure you update your inventory as a part of that policy, and then go into scope, set it to whatever computers need to have access to the policy. I'll say specific or all, and then make it available in self-service. I hit save. OneNote's available for my Macs. Didn't have to do anything off the iPad to do that. So those are some examples of getting data into Jamf. What about getting data out of Jamf Pro? Let's take a look at exporting reports from list of devices. Anywhere I am inside of Jamf Pro, if I have a list of managed devices, at the very bottom right-hand side, there's a button called Export. Tap on Export, and you're going to get one of these. Asks you what format do you want to file, what format do you want that file in. It could be CSV, XML, text. I'll choose an XML file, hit Next, and it's like downloading any other file. When you're done, you get that XML file as an exported report. I can choose to tap on More or Save to Files. And there you go. If it's an iCloud drive, I can access it anywhere. Okay, so that is doing stuff inside of the web app interface. Now let's talk about actually using some native applications on iOS to accomplish many of the same tasks for managing your Macs and iOS devices. If I have an on-premise Jamf Pro server, I may need to be able to access that remotely, either over Wi-Fi, LTE, VPN. Wherever you are in the world, if you have an iPad and has cellular data, you have access to your on-prem server if you've got a VPN connection back to it. But you don't necessarily always have an interface for it. If I want to be able to remotely connect to my machine over SSH, typically on a Mac, I just use Terminal, and that's great. But there is no Terminal application on iOS. You need something else. So there are third-party applications. A good example of that is an application named Prompt by Panic. It's $15 from the App Store and worth every penny. So let's take a look at a few things I can do for remotely managing a Jamf Pro server, or on-prem Jamf Pro server, with an SSH connection. So from the home screen of my iPad, I can just tap and launch Prompt. And it's pretty simple. It's just going to ask you for authentication information for your Jamf Pro server. So I could put in an IP address, domain name, put in a username and password for opening up that connection, and when I tap on Connect, I get a command line interface. Fantastic. So same as what I would see inside of a terminal, and now I have access to my server to do what I need to do. What would I do, though, from a command line? Well, maybe I want to view the log files that that server's been generating. I can do that all from the command line. I could go in and tell my Jamf server to make a backup of its database. Just do that manually. And when I enter that command, see the progress appear on the screen. Maybe I can bring that a step further. I can schedule a backup to happen daily for my database, again, through the command line, and just make sure that that works. So that's accessing the server. What about Macs? Maybe I need to manage or get access to a Mac that's running the server or a device that I need to be able to help manage. We've got tools for that too. So third-party application, Screens by Adovia, $20 application, does much of the same thing as Prompt, but through a graphical interface. So let's just open up Screens here. With nothing set up, you can tap on New in the upper right-hand corner, say New Screen, and put in the information to be able to connect back to a Mac. So again, whatever you need, if it's going to be an IP address, if you need to be able to connect to VPN, like those are all possibilities, but just put in the information that you need to be able to remotely connect to a Mac. And then you get screen sharing. Mac shows up on your iPad. You can do with it what you need at that point. One nice thing about the iPad in this situation is you have access to shortcuts on the screen, software, so they can put whatever buttons you need there. Sometimes it's like having the touch bar, but remotely. So if I have access to a Mac, I have access to the Jamf Pro suite of applications. That also opens up a lot of possibilities of things I can do from the iPad. I can use Composer if I want to create a snapshot, or if I want to be able to create some sort of an installer package, something that wasn't pre-made, something I can't just download, I can use Composer to create that. I can use Recon, and I can create quick add packages for enrolling devices. I have access to the admin application, so I can upload that quick add package, or I can upload the packages I created through a Composer. And I have access to remote. So all the native Mac applications are there, running on a remote Mac, be it an actual physical device, or even a hosted virtual machine. But then, once you do this for a little bit, you're going to want to look for native apps for iOS that can help you perform many of these same tasks. So I do have one example of a native iOS app. It's not out yet. It is coming down the line from third parties. But here's an application called Majam, M-A-J-A-M. I assume it's going to be available on the Jamf Marketplace when it's done. But it's a native iOS app. It has all the same features, or many of the same features you'd expect to find in the web interface. But you can manage lists of devices. You can tap on them, look at their inventory records, and then send remote management commands to them. So like I said, something that's still currently in development, but keep an eye out for it because this is really cool. So on that same note, I'm going to kind of end up with talking about the API. And the API is really just a way to extend a lot of the functionality of Jamf Pro when there's not an explicit interface to do something that you necessarily need. So to do that, we need to create an API user. It's going to be a service account that exists inside of Jamf Pro. When I need to be able to write a script or something to be able to access the Jamf Pro server, I want to have a specific user account that can help me perform that function and kind of lock it down. So pretty basic workflow, jump into your Jamf Pro server, go to settings in the upper right-hand corner, go to Jamf Pro, user accounts and groups, and then just tap to create a new user. Create a standard account, give it a name, give it a password, and then go to privileges. And so if we're going to be using the API to access some specific feature of Jamf, we want to just lock it down again to only have the privileges to access those features. When you're done, hit done. And this is going to come in handy in just a moment. OK, so the question now is, how do I access the API from the iPad? Scripts are usually how you do it on a Mac. We don't have scripts necessarily on iOS. But there is an application that can help us do this, and it's called Workflow. It's a free application, and it's made by Apple. Convenient. So I've got 3 examples of things I want to be able to do using the API, and I'll kind of give you a brief explanation of what they're going to do, show you a quick video of that action actually happening, and then I'll go through step by step just to kind of help describe exactly what it actually did. So set custom lock screens. The workflow application is going to let people, if you want to be able to see an example of this and use it on your own iPad, you can follow that URL. Opens up Safari. Safari lets you tap download, and it opens up the sample file inside of Workflow. So if it's anything you want to play with yourself, certainly it's available online right now. So set custom lock screens. What I'm going to have is an administrator iPad on the left and a managed device on the right-hand side. And the idea is I'm going to bring up the managed devices inventory record on my administrator iPad. And what I want to do is create a custom lock screen for that managed device from the web app inside of Jamf. And then I'm going to push that custom lock screen as an MDM command to that managed device. So just run through it quickly here. Open up the device's inventory record, tap on the share button in the upper right-hand side of Safari. That gives me access to the Workflow app, which opens up on top of Safari, and it starts the workflow. And I'll go through each of these steps here in a moment. But in the end, I'm creating a custom wallpaper, and once I hit done, it initiates the MDM push, and I've got a managed device with a custom lock screen. And home screen wallpaper. OK, so what just happened. I'm looking at the device's inventory record inside of Jamf, and I'm calling up the workflow application. Workflow is actually going to look at the device's website. There's something hidden here, and that's that the website for this managed device actually contains a unique ID for that device. Workflow is taking in the URL for that inventory record, pulling out the ID, doing an API lookup to get the serial number for that device, taking that serial number and turning it into a QR code. It has that functionality built into Workflow. And then it's asking me as an admin to choose a photo that I want to use as the default wallpaper on the device. So select Photos, opens up the Photos application. You choose, in my case, a Jamf logo. And then it asks me, or I actually asked it, I want to be able to overlay the QR code that it's generated on top of the photo that I've selected. So manually arrange that where you want it to be and hit done. And again, we're going to use the API at this point to do a post to that device's, or to that device from Workflow. And in the end, you have a custom lock screen now for that iPad. And that's something I don't know how to do on a Mac. I've used a Mac for 30 years. I don't know how to do that on a Mac. It'd be a very manual process. So now we're going to do the exact opposite of that. I'm going to look up a device record. And in this situation, I have the same exact iPad with the custom lock screen with a QR code. I want to be able to just have that iPad in front of me, have my admin iPad, scan the QR code, and get access to that particular device's management commands. So Workflow lets you save applications as web clips to your home screen. So that gives me pretty easy access to just tap and launch that app. It goes right into a custom version of the camera that's looking for QR codes. As soon as it scans it, it knows the serial number of the device that I'm looking at, does an API call to do the exact reverse, looks up the ID of that device, and creates a URL that's passed on to Safari. Safari opens to not only that device's management record, but the actual management commands, because that is accessible through a specific URL. So then once I'm on that page, on my iPad, I have the ability to just tap on one of the management commands. In this case, I locked a device. Great. Okay, third and final example is a recreation of one of my favorite tools on the Mac, and you've probably heard a lot about it this week, and it's called the MUT, the Mass Update Tool. It didn't exist on iOS. I wanted it on iOS. We can have it. The MUT, if you're not familiar, is a way to be able to take a spreadsheet that contains two values, a column of serial numbers of devices, and a second column of some known attribute of that device, be it a device name, an asset tag, and you want to be able to get that data quickly into Jamf Pro. You can do it manually, you can do it all from the iPad as well. You can use the MUT on the Mac, but again, I was trying to find a way to do this with iOS. So, let's just launch and see how it goes. Asks me what kind of attribute I'm updating, device name or asset tag. Asks me for my API service accounts credentials, so I can enter that in on the iPad when I run it. Gives a little notification letting me know what type of file type I should be looking for. Opens the Files app, choose my CSV, and does a whole bunch of stuff and eventually lands on the Safari page. So let me just go through that a little more slowly here. Okay. Now, again, this is a workflow that I created, so it can be customized to whatever you need it to be. You're not limited, obviously, to just the two options of device name or asset tag. It just seemed useful to have that option and prove that it could be done. So choose what it's going to be. Enter in the URL for your Jamf Pro server. Enter in the credentials for the API service account. Got the notification letting me know that I chose earlier, I'm going to be updating asset tags, so choose a spreadsheet that has a list of serial numbers and asset tags, browse through iCloud Drive if I've got that file there or wherever it may be. Again, I can access it through the Files app on the iPad. And then it runs like a script. It goes through line by line, breaks up each row as a variable, saves as a variable, splits it apart based on the comma separation of the different lines, and iterates through every single line in the spreadsheet until it hits the end. Once it gets to the end, it's going to do kind of something we had done before, where it actually generates a URL for the final device that I updated the asset tag for, and tells Safari to open up that page, and then fires off a notification. Two things happen here. One, I can look and verify that the asset tag actually updated to what I meant it to be, and I get a notification from Workflow letting me know that all of the asset tags have been updated. And that's it. That's what I got. If you have questions, I'll happily field them, but yeah.
I missed it when you downloaded the package from Microsoft. How did you get it all? It's not a real question to record. We don't need it. No, because I missed it. If I would have been paying attention and not downloading iCab, I would have seen it.
I can do it again. I'll just go through the whole.
You downloaded the package and you got it via iCab onto the cloud.
Yeah.
How did you get it up to the JSS?
So for me, since it's a Jamf Cloud server, I have the Jamf Cloud distribution point, which means I can access that through the web interface.
Okay, so you just moved it to the Jamf.
Put it in the Files app, and then when I go to choose file, it lets me choose from files.
So that's the cloud then?
Yep. If I didn't have a cloud server in that case, I could still use something like the remote application or screens to be able to use Jamf admin, upload it to a file share distribution.
That's what I missed. I missed the cloud. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So I have two questions.
Sure.
The one where you had the QR code becoming the wallpaper, the background.
Yes.
Does Workflow have the capability of using the camera? So if I went to a classroom, I could take a picture of each kid and have his picture become the wallpaper of the iPad, because that's what our teachers like, so they know whose iPad is who.
Yeah, I mean, in theory, that should work just fine. You'd have to just set up the workflow to either set a variable and then use that variable to find a name or reference that file.
Well, just the asset tag of the iPad, I would assume.
Yep.
And then just take the picture, and that asset tag would then update with that kid's picture.
Yeah,
as the
absolutely.
wallpaper.
I mean, even inside a workflow, at that point, you could just prompt. I had it say generate a QR code. You could prompt it to open up camera, and then when you take a picture, the camera app saves that and then just pushes that as your image. So you could run it in the moment.
Yes.
Yep.
Awesome. Second question, as a replacement for MUT, can you do multiple attributes instead of just 2 columns? Can you do 3, 4, 5? Like I would want to update department, room, as well as serial number and asset tag.
Well, that probably just comes down to a limitation of my abilities. But the way that I would probably look at doing that is either with multiple spreadsheets or even just one long spreadsheet that you'd have to use the serial number multiple times and then have that as a different attribute in different places. And at some point, however you do it, when it loops through, it has to know that it's changing to a different type of attribute that's being updated inside of Jamf. So whether that's just loop back at the very beginning and have me once again choose what type of attribute, but I don't see why not.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. Sweet.
Well, thanks, Mike. Thanks, everybody, for coming to our final how-to session for JNUC 2017.